Hi everyone, this is Joyce Strong, Bottom Syndicate, and I'm here today with part 2 of my 3-part interview with Jody Marchand discussing a very important subject on domestic violence. I would like, if you are willing, to hear a little bit about Olivia.
Of course I'm willing. You know, my husband had children from his previous marriage. Mm-hmm. When I met my husband, they were like age 3 and 5. Mm-hmm. So he never wanted more kids. And at a young age, I was all about, getting some high-paying job, and it didn't bother me, because when you're 19 or 20, you're not seeing yourself 10 years. But anyway, so it was completely accidental that I got pregnant, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me in my entire life.
Yeah.
And actually, he was okay. I was so scared to tell him.
Wow.
I can't even begin to tell you, I'm afraid. And he said okay, because his kids were babies when he got divorced. His wife said, I want out. Yeah. Now I know why.
Yeah.
So he was okay, which I was shocked. And so the thing that was crazy is that his daughter, who was there was a 20-year difference, so she was not happy at all.
A 20-year difference with?
My stepdaughter was 20 years old when I had Olivia.
Oh, yeah.
But Olivia was the joy of my life. Thankfully, I was a loan officer, so I could work from home. Yeah. So she was in daycare 3 days a week. Yeah. And half the time, my mother was a teacher aide. Mostly every day, she would go to, I would get her there late, and then my mother would pick her up at 2 o'clock. Yeah. So she wasn't at daycare very often, for long periods at a time. Yeah. But so I was very fortunate that my mom and dad was the first grandchild, and they very often would get her. And my mother would sit with her for hours playing Barbie, which I can honestly say I did not do. But there's certain things I remember that was so funny. At each age you think it can't get any cuter, and I'll always remember when she was in the back seat she was little, and I was on the phone because as a loan officer, you're just, seems like you're constantly on the phone talking to clients or what have you. And she was in the back and something happened, and I forget, another car did something, and she said, that person sucks, Mommy. I'm like, oh my God, you couldn't help but laugh and think, oh my gosh, I guess I better be careful of the words I'm using.
Yeah.
But and thankfully my mother would play with her, so I'd go to pick up my daughter, and she'd not want to go home. Mm-hmm. It was so funny. Because, my husband obviously had an oil company, so he worked crazy hours sometimes, so I was fortunate that my mother took care of her. So as she grew up, she was involved in various things, cheerleading, then it became volleyball, and I just wanted her to always be involved in school activities because I thought she would turn out to be not getting into trouble as I was. I thought I'd see it. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But we had our year of dramatic things that I found out about my daughter, and so one time she was grounded for like a month, and I wouldn't let her have her cell phone, and it was, anyway. However, and I believe that this boyfriend was affecting her life, and he was a year older, so he went off to school, and my child was back, and she was blossoming. This kid was highly intelligent. Her report cards were always very, very good grades. However, I was the type to look at the comments and say that instructor said you could try a little harder, even though she got an A- or a B+, and that's, I was that way. But she was extremely independent, extremely intelligent, and from what I have found out from other students, is very, very friendly. And one story I heard was that there was a kid that was in her class that maybe was new or something, and she actually, went and introduced herself, and you know what I mean? Like, here's this kid. I mean, I knew she was a good person. She's my child. But these stories I heard later, I was like, wow, she really was a good person, and, so as I said, she applied to these schools. She did to these colleges. She did all the work. All I did was hand her a check. And she did her essays. She was accepted to Northeastern, to all these schools that are difficult to get into. UMass Amherst put her on a we'll see list, so to speak. And I said, figures, the one I could maybe afford. But she really, really wanted University of Vermont. She was very into nature.
Yeah.
I think she would have ended up in some sort of environmental career. All I know is it cost a lot of money to go to University of Vermont. And when I brought her, there was like this unexpected early spring day. And it was just gorgeous there. Yeah. And I said, I want to go here.
No kidding. Yeah, it is beautiful.
And so she really wanted to go. In fact, we were due to go there for a parent conference, or whatever you want to call it, where the students and their parents come to visit.
Yeah.
We were due to go there the following week.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I was hoping she wouldn't like it because it would be very snowy and cold. And honestly, I think my husband knew he had lost control about that because he didn't want to spend that kind of money on a college. He didn't believe in that.
Yeah.
So he just, it's their way or the highway.
Yeah. She sounds like an amazing young woman.
I believe so.
Yeah.
And it's, I know so. I know so. And just from stories I've heard and just, she was honest to a T. I appreciated that about her. I found something in her bedroom once that at the time wasn't legal, marijuana. And I always said I would try to talk with her without, being totally out of control. And I said, oh my gosh, I found this in your bedroom. Is this yours? And she said, yes, it is. And looking back, I'm like, she had the honesty to tell me, even though she knew I was like freaking out. But I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of great things that, and so now I live with, first of all, the guilt that I did not run out the door. I went to change out of my pajamas.
Yeah.
I live with that every day.
You thought you had time.
Maybe had I run out the door, he would have just killed himself, and she would still be here.
Yeah.
I live with that every day. She told me once she didn't care if we left. Early on, of course, she adores her father. I will tell you this quick story, if that's okay, if we have time.
Sure.
She was, say, around 10 years old. We were at a friend's. Their son had graduated from high school, I believe. And they were having a cookout, and my husband had had too much to drink. And I wanted to drive home. And heaven forbid he would let me have the say on whether I was driving home. He was driving home. Again, control. And I was so angry that we got in the car, my husband was driving, my daughter was in the middle, and I was, by the window, and we had a pickup truck, and I was so angry, I couldn't even speak. That's how angry I was. So he knew I was angry when we got in the car, and he said, oh, you're angry now? And he stepped on the gas, and he turned to go left towards our home. And he stepped on the gas, so as we're turning, the car is literally skidding off of the road, and there was a person there who had a big rock in the front of their yard, and it hit the rock, and it went over sideways.
Oh my gosh.
10-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
So I remember him jumping out the driver's side door, and I crawled out my side and got her out. Thankfully, she was in the middle. And I'm trying to stay calm because my daughter was there, but I just lost control. I'm like, that's it. I'm getting a divorce. I can't take it. I can't take it. And she said, Mommy, it was an accident. And I remember watching him be, they do the whole legal whatever to decide if they've had too much to drink. And I saw him doing that walk to see, and I thought, thank goodness he's going to be arrested and I can be home without him tonight.
Did he get arrested?
And he knew someone in the police force, and he was let go.
Oh my God.
Imagine. I mean, we're talking probably, 20 years ago or something, or close to it. So maybe today that wouldn't have happened, but that's what happened.
Oh my gosh.
And to this day, I cannot believe I stayed, but I thought he finally gets it. He finally gets it. And you think it will change.
Yeah.
And life goes on, and I knew she wouldn't, it would hurt her. I don't know, it's a cycle, and very often they're horrible, and then they're really amazing and promise you everything and say how sorry they are and promise you the world and say all the things they know you want to hear. And so you think it's going to change.
The hearts and flowers.
Everything. Yeah. And then it goes right back to it. So it's a cycle, but you believe they finally get it.
It's hard for me to even imagine not hard but it's just so profound, the degree of control he had for you to even get in the vehicle with your child.
I know. Looking back, I can tell you so many stories of looking back thinking, I can't believe I did this, or I can't believe I didn't break up with him then. I mean, there's a million.
Yeah.
And so that's why I live with guilt forever.
Why guilt, though?
Because I didn't run out the door this time or that time, or, you know what I mean? There's so many times.
But you're thinking with a logical brain looking back, when you're in that situation and your self-esteem is crushed, you're not thinking in the same
I guess. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. I really don't know. Although what I do think is that it's an ongoing problem, because if you grow up in it, you think it's normal.
Yeah.
I mean, my mother was not physically abused, but I see things where her confidence was shattered. They will appear to everyone to be this amazing person. My husband was the fun guy. Never, ever did anyone think he was like that. You know, my dad would help everyone, you know, but then come home and you know, be different to my mom. I mean, and so I grew up with that. So, and now my daughter grew up with that, and she had a boyfriend. One of her friends I met for lunch one day, say a couple years later, and he said, you know, there's stories I could tell you. And one, for instance, these kids would hang out at some pond in Westford. Yeah. And she was there fishing. So like her dad, she liked to go fishing. Yeah. Because that's what he taught her. And she was there fishing. Yeah. Which surprised me as it was. But her friends showed up there and they were like, Olivia, wow, it's so great to see you. We haven't seen you in so long. And they were so happy. And the next thing, her boyfriend pulled up on like his dirt bike or something. And she said, we'll see you later. That's why I must talk to anyone that will listen to my story. Because somehow this cycle needs to be broken, which is why I want to speak at schools. And I can adjust my story for certain age groups, obviously. It must be told, and not, it's so common in our world.
It seems to me that having it told at all levels is important, because a child can't break out, but I know this conversation happened in our family with my granddaughter. I think my daughter, I actually haven't read this book, but my daughter had a book that was having to do with my bucket, that fills my bucket, or that.
Oh yeah, your bucket list.
Yeah, I don't
Right?
know. Well, I'm not sure the name of it, but it has to do with when you talk to me that way,
Oh.
it makes my bucket full.
Okay.
And when you talk to me, this way, like you hurt my feelings. So they gave language to young children. So that makes my bucket empty.
So that
my
kids
bucket of
can-
love, so they're trying to put into words how they're feeling.
Okay,
And
great.
identifying. So when you speak to me this way, I just want to let you know that that just emptied my bucket.
Okay, I have
Like
heard of this now that you
Yeah,
say it.
I don't know the name of the book, but
It's a fantastic way of
but
looking
hearing,
at
yeah,
things.
and she at the time I think was 4 or 5 and able to grasp this idea. And I thought that when you mentioned earlier in our conversation about maybe the child will challenge it, that's what she was being taught to do, how to, and that it's okay to.
Yes.
Because we're all in stress, right? Life can be stressful. Sometimes I'll raise
Absolutely.
my voice. I don't mean to, and if I'm called on it, or just like, I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even realize I was doing that,
Right,
and so
right.
giving the tools at all levels. And then, of course, in the high school level, or even junior high school, when kids are starting to get boyfriends and girlfriends, and in that dating relationship, and how to, help them navigate that.
Well, yes, and let's face it, the kids. Well, I mean, kids have. I mean, I remember 6th grade. That was everybody had a boyfriend.
6th, 7th grade, they start.
It starts already, and that's why I'm. Somehow these stories. Somehow it needs to be talked about in these schools because it's reality.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you could. It's so hard to do now, but if at some point, looking back at your life and all that's happened to you, could you imagine any place where an intervention could have helped you?
Well, I don't know. Maybe I do recall there was a couple of my friends. They were husband and wife. My husband was away hunting one weekend, and the gang was going out somewhere to dinner or something, and they invited me to go with them for a ride. And on the way home, they said, "Jody, I have to say, I don't think Brian's very good to you or nice to you or whatever, in other words, we believe there's an issue going on." And I said, "I know there is. You're absolutely right." And they were like, "Please don't say anything." Well, by the time Sunday came around, I was so angry. Right or wrong, I said something. Well, he called this friend who, the husband, and said, "I'm going to be right down there. I can't believe you said it. And, I'm going to be down there to, beat you up," or you know what I mean, like something like that.
Yeah.
And I lost that friendship.
Wow.
But so I mean, yes, intervention would be great. But the thing is that I don't know that people, like for instance, if I was complaining about him to my mother, that's how she lived. She was complaining about my dad all the time. You know what I mean? No one really thought it was going to go to the extreme that it did. But intervention would be fantastic, right? I mean, if you see your best friends in a bad relationship, if you see that your sister's got to get out, come up with a plan. I had heard a story where this woman's mom was afraid, and so her daughter said, "Get a bag ready." This is recommended to people very often. Have a bag ready. Save money. Put credit cards in it. Put whatever needs be in this bag, so that if you can run out the door, you've got this bag. And so she called her daughter one night and said, "Please pick me up." And she had her bag.
Wow.
So she had a plan ready. But that's if, I was at a meeting this morning, and there was a police officer there. It's Western Coalition for Nonviolence. It was started after what happened to me. And there was a police officer there talking about, they had 11 visits, whether it was in the last month, I don't remember, but 11 visits and 1 arrest. And I said, yes, those are the visits. These are people that have called 911. But if you have fear of calling 911, like I had fear.
Right.
I called because it was an automatic reaction, but I immediately hung up. So you have fear. Like, imagine what's really going on.
Right.
There's fear of that.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems to me that just hearing what you said, that one intervention that ended up you losing the friendship over,
Yes.
wasn't enough. That this needs to be said. It needs to become the fabric of, like, the Me Too movement.
Right.
It needs to become our everyday discussion and reminded, so that it becomes,
in some way.
Yeah, not normalized, that it's, this is normal, this is not. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. There's talk through this committee I was on this morning. They've put together some booklets to put in various places in the police station so that someone can take a look and say, yes, this is me. Or there's ways, like, maybe to have a 1-page flyer and the person can take a picture of it. That way the flyer is not in their pocket, because they can't see. They don't want their abusive partner to know.
Right.
One time, a friend of mine, she was concerned about her daughter in a bad relationship, and she had me visit them or meet with them at a restaurant one night. But she didn't tell her daughter I was going to be there. Yeah. And I have a piece of paper about all the signs of abuse.
Yeah.
Because it isn't just physical. And this piece of paper gives particular examples. It talks about all the various signs. And I gave it to her. I told her my story. And she brought it home and said to her boyfriend, you fall into every single category.
Wow.
Yeah. But it took her a while to get out.
Wow.
So sometimes just talking to someone is a good start.
Yeah. That sounds scary to me, though. Just unpacking that a little bit. Going to the boyfriend would have been something I wouldn't recommend that she go alone. That's where something bad could happen.
I would do things like that. I mean, my mother was shocked sometimes by the things I would say and get away with.
Yeah.
She said I would never have said that.
Yeah.
But
then it starts to be turned around like it's your fault.
Exactly.
And it's not,
And they don't remember the way it truly really happened or what they actually said. They don't believe it.
Yelling at somebody, he's yelling at you, it doesn't give, you're having an argument, but that doesn't give him the right to abuse you.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Right. I mean, you should be able to have an argument.
Yeah.
And have it be discussed, or, not to say some things won't be heated, but you shouldn't have to worry that it's going to get out of control, or that he's saying, you're an idiot for thinking that way, or you're so stupid, or you're so ugly, or, I mean, these are all words.
What were the piece of paper that you talked about, the signs, what were some of those signs?
It talks about, okay, for instance, it talks about if you're going out with friends, who are you going with? Where are you going? What are you doing? When are you going to be back? All that.
Mm-hmm. So your partner is asking you all these details.
For control purposes.
For control, yeah.
There's physical, obviously. There's there's money, the control of the money, so that, you may be in it literally goes from all income levels, all types of relationships, and so you can be from a family that lives in, this high income town, and yet you have no access. So that when you need to go buy groceries, you have to ask him for money. Your paycheck is handed over, so and when you ask for money, you're only allowed a certain amount. I know a story of a woman that she had young children, and he gave her like, $40. So she had to ask her mother
To feed the children.
for money, extra money for the groceries. These are stories that I hear.
Wow.
Yeah.
So those are some of the signs: the physical, the
the emotional,
Yeah.
Then there's sexual abuse. There's many pieces to that puzzle, but it boils down to power and control.
Yeah.
Is what it's about.
Where do you think it starts for the person, the abuser?
Where does it start?
For them, like why
that they became that way?
Yeah.
Well, again, I think if you grow up in it, that very often it would happen because it's what you learn.
Yeah.
There's stories my husband had told me that I thought he laughed and I laughed, but looking back, they're not funny. And
Like what?
well,
From his childhood?
there's a story he had said once about when he was a child, and his dad and his uncles who brought their young kids, and he told the moms that his mom that they were going out for ice cream. They were going to go to Skip's restaurant, which used to be in Chelmsford. It was like the ice cream place.
Yeah.
And then they decided, they were going to take off for the day, and wherever he brought them, the dads brought them wherever, and Brian remembers it as this really, really fun day. So imagine, of course we didn't have cell phones, imagine you think your kid and your husband's going out for ice cream, and then you don't see them till maybe dinner time or something, or maybe, and my husband thought that was so funny. And so the way he described it seemed funny to me. Now looking back, I'm like, that's not funny.
Yeah, yeah.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
And so if you're growing up in it, it's what you're learning.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I believe. That's what I believe. And and as I said, I think I know it's so common. And when it says 1 in 3 women, but you don't see it on TV talked about like you hear about, other things. As I said, October Domestic Violence Month. Do you hear about that? No.
Not much, no.
I speak at things, but
yeah. But you're speaking to fairly small crowds, and we need to get you out there to be able to talk to larger numbers of people. And
it is my mission.
Yeah.
Never will I have my daughter forgotten. And as I said, this is a story that needs to get out there, so I thank you. Because you're right, it needs to really get out there.
Yeah. Hey everyone, thanks a lot for tuning in to our second episode with Jody Marchand on domestic violence. This is Joyce Strong with Bottom Syndicate. We have one more episode to complete the 3-part series, so make sure you tune in and listen to all 3.